Jason Whitlock. I thought it was of ESPN, but he's not of ESPN. Jason Whitlock, the fellow on the screen behind me next, just opposed to LeBron James. Jason Whitlock went on Fox Sports 1 today, and he went on in order to push back against LeBron James. And he's pushing back against LeBron James because of what LeBron James said in an interview, in a press conference on yesterday with regard to the N-word being spray painted, graffitied across his home in Brentwood, California. His multi-million-dollar home. He was not there. His family was not there, but still it was directly targeted towards LeBron James. Jason Whitlock, it never fails. It never fails. You will always find some black man, some black person ready and able and willing to go on television and say the things that white America cannot say because they can't politically get away with it. Or if you can't say something and you really want it said, all you have to do is hire up Jason Whitlock and he'll come on and say it, not because he doesn't believe it, but because he honestly believes it. You will always find somebody like that. Fox News is full of them. The Jesse Lee Pedersens of the world, the Larry Elders of the world, the Sheriff David Clarks of the world, the people who would get on television and be the black face of white supremacy to white America and say Black Lives Matter, they're just a bunch of thugs. You'll never run out of people willing to do that. And that's exactly what Jason Whitlock took 10 minutes of his day and our day to push back against LeBron James, because LeBron James had the nerve to say that he felt that it doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how famous you are, racism has a way of finding you. There's nothing untrue about the statement that LeBron James made, because it is true and it did happen. LeBron James is extremely wealthy. LeBron James is extremely famous, and LeBron James had a home in one of the nicest communities in the world, yet it did not stop racism from coming and finding him where he was. But according to Jason Whitlock, and I won't play the clips because it's Fox News and will get cut off midstream. You can go watch the clip. Besides, it's 10 minutes of him just meandering along, finding ways of attacking LeBron James, essentially to say one thing, that because LeBron James is wealthy, he is not able to experience racism. Or he's not able to experience racism in a meaningful way. In other words, LeBron James, you make so much money, why are you out here playing the victim? James, or whatever your name is, Jason, the fact of the matter is whether or not you consider someone vandalizing your homes to make a victim, whether or not you think that's an actual victim or not, the fact of the matter was LeBron James was the target of a racist vandalization. I'm making up words here. The point is, it doesn't matter how rich he is, racism found him. And this is what Jason Whitlock is actually doing, though, because in this whole 10-minute meandering of word salads, Jason Whitlock is trying to convince us. He's doing a good job, actually, of trying to convince us that the real problem is not race, that the real problem is economics. And if you really want to see if you really want to see racism, if you really want to see problems in the society, don't look at rich black people, look at poor people. And I make that distinction because he went through great painstaking efforts to make sure that you understood that Oprah Winfrey doesn't experience racism. Oprah Winfrey can't possibly be the victim of racism. LeBron James, he's black and he can't possibly be the victim of racism because they are wealthy. But then when he flipped the conversation or flipped the other side of the argument, he did not even take the time to identify that you can be poor and black and experience both racism and poverty. And so on the one side, he's trying to wash away the ability of wealthy black people to experience racism by saying, oh, the real problem is poverty. But then he would not even go as far as to say that there's an intersection between poverty and race in which many black people experience both every single day of the week. In other words, he's using wealth as a red herring to get you off of the idea that it's even possible for LeBron James to experience racism. And it's not because he's concerned about the plight of poor black people. It's because he honestly buys into this black conservative, this conservative way of thinking that suggests that black people really don't have it bad. We just be complaining too much. This is Jason Whitlock's entire purpose. Whenever he gets on television, whenever you see his name trending, you can guarantee yourself it's because he's doing something. He's fulfilling the role of Uncle Ruckus. And even more so than that, just go one step further. This is the same exact argument that he made against Colin Kaepernick in order to try to silence Colin Kaepernick when Colin Kaepernick was literally silent. He wasn't making a bunch of grand gestures and grand statements. He was taking a knee. But for Jason Whitlock, it was too much for him because how can this Martin Luther cornrow, this is what he called him, how can Martin Luther cornrows actually speak out against racism when he's wealthy? Go one step further. Jason Whitlock could not even bring himself to call the people who made this, who did this to LeBron James' home. He could not bring himself to actually say that they were racist. He said that they were ignorant. He said that they were stupid. He's used all kinds of words to describe them, but he would not say that they were racist. I'm sorry, Jason, but even white people who don't believe in racism know that the N-word is racist. And if you are so far gone that you can't even bring yourself to say that this graffiti attack against LeBron James' home, which used the N-word, is a racist attack, then you're now outdoing white people who don't even want to admit that racism exists. But they will admit if somebody happens to say the N-word, oh yeah, that person is a racist. You won't even do that. So in many ways, the student has outdone the master. You are so far gone, Jason, that you are no longer the student, but you are the master, the plantation master. And we can actually even go further with this because he's attacking a fundamental truth. He wants to deplatform. He wants to silence the voices of people who actually have access, wealth, privilege, and platform sufficient to make a national statement with regard to race. The reality of it is that the reason so many of us love to hear wealthy people and people who are famous speak out about race, it's not because we're so fascinated with them as an individual. It's not because we're fans. It's because most of us will never get the opportunity to speak to an audience of any sufficient size to let them know about our experiences. And even me, there's not a day that goes by that I am not referred to as a nigger on YouTube. Every single day, I get the updates to my phone so I can inoculate myself against the bullshit so I don't even care anymore. But every day I get something popped up. Oh, this fat nigger did this, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's every single day. And yet I'm still privileged enough to inform my audience, even though it's a modest sized audience. I have a platform to let my audience know about the racism that still exists. But that is a privilege that most black people in America do not have. They do not have a platform to speak out about what they experience. And so they need people. They need to live vicariously, if you want to call it that, but they need a spokesperson that has a platform sufficiently large enough to let the rest of the world know what happens every single day in the black community and in the black experience. And for Jason Whitlock, he's trying to use wealth as a way of disqualifying LeBron James from being that spokesperson for millions of people who will never have the opportunity to let the world know that while wealth is great and wealth makes things better, the reality of it is no amount of money, no amount of fame will keep you away from the racism that exists in the United States of America. And if it is so ubiquitous and if it's so saturated in the American community that it reaches Brentwood, California, to one of the wealthiest black men in the world, what the entire hell do you think is going to happen to the ordinary Negro? See you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
It's Ben Dixon!
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.